For my peer review of the School Technology Needs Assessment, or the STNA assessment, I'm going to be discussing what I believe is my strongest and weakest area, as well as going through some research articles and furthering the discussion around these topics and evaluating how my experience may counteract other experiences and how a different thought perspective towards these can shape me as an educator and hopefully bring some new information to all of you and allow for your mind to expand on these certain topics. So, after completing the STNA assessment, I believe that Section 1, Supportive Environment for Technology Use, was my strongest section. And specifically, I want to talk about the Media Center section within this questioning. Number 18, the Media Center can be flexibly scheduled to provide equitable access to resources and instruction. I strongly agreed with. Now, the experience that I will be talking about is from my field experience at Seneca Valley Senior High School this past spring. Now, the Media Center, there is a calendar that is open to all teachers to be able to sign up for times to host their classes within the Media Center. And the amount of flexibility within seating and space allows for multiple things to go on. If you are working on a performance-based project like I was able to do with our mock trial unit, we were able to have both court cases going on at the same time at separate ends of the room without it causing a distraction to students. And this also allowed access to smart boards to the students as well as to the teaching staff in this room. So allowing for presentations of evidence, allowing for a time clock to be present for students to know, okay, I have this much time for my direct examination, or I have this much time for my cross-examination. This access to the smartboard provides students with a whole new sense of technology that they're not oftentimes able to use other than in a classroom that has one and with the teacher allowing the students to interact on the smartboard of, here, take the pen and circle the answer or do this activity. This actually is access to the students to be able to use this technology. When I graduated in high school in 2019, and I only used it for class demonstrations when the teacher allowed it and you were chosen upon. And the access of multimedia within the Media Center is amazing, and I strongly agreed with it. However, I don't believe that students are aware of what is present to them. Now, majority of my classes were aware of the books that were able to be accessed and all the other resources that we do provide, but Seneca Valley is a large school district, with the high school being split between an intermediate high school serving grades 9 through 10 and a senior high school serving grades 11 through 12. So there is most certainty that not every student is aware of what is of access to them. And while we are talking about access, I actually want to talk about my research article from Tuck and Dwight of 2016. This is a National Education Association article titled Library/Media Centers in U.S. Public Schools, Growth, Staffing, and Resources, Full Report. And while I was reading this article, something that jumped out to me that I actually didn't consider while I was originally collecting my thoughts about all of this interpretation of the STNA assessment is race and poverty. It discusses how lower income schools do not have the access that a school in a better economic standing do have. And I think that's especially important to realize as somebody who did their field experience at Seneca Valley Senior High School was able to experience due to the fact that overwhelmingly it is a middle to higher middle class, even low higher class school district. Now, there are some students who are struggling financially and dealing with economic burden within their families that is present within the school district, but the school district as a whole has the funding to be able to provide students with these resources. Every student is provided with a Chromebook, and it allows for access to technology, and it allows for communication amongst students and teacher through Microsoft Teams. So it's allowing for this monitored chat and allowing for these students to have access to their classes, their teacher, and create this environment. But this report discusses the hardships that these schools are facing with a lack of funding due to economic burden. And I believe that's really important to highlight because not every school receives the appropriate funding that I believe allows for complete success for students. Now, students can absolutely succeed in lower income districts. However, it frustrates me that education is so heavily tied to economic standpoints. And the great thing is that there are grants available for these school districts to improve test scores, to provide materials to students that they don't have at home, because some of these students do not have internet access. So being able to come to school and have a laptop and have access to Wi-Fi is so crucial, because the internet has kind of been not considered a luxury anymore. It's become the standard, and as technology is advancing, we are kind of losing the idea that some people don't have access. And I think that's something very interesting, that we need to remember that not all students have the same access or have the same economic backgrounds as other students. So making them be able to do everything online, the shift to move all assignments online, can place a burden on these students because they don't have the access. And some students may not be able to go to a free public library and use those computers due to family concerns or other outlying factors. And that's something that I believe I really needed to mention to further discuss of how I was lucky to be able to have access and to be in a school district that has this funding, but not everywhere does. So, considering technology and the usage of it, I was talking very highly about it in my strengths. And I do believe that technology is great for education. But talking about my weakest section, I do really want to talk about the impact of technology. And the reason that I want to talk about the section for impact of technology on the STNA assessment is because I believe that this is my weakest, because for most of these fields, I put the neither agree nor disagree, because I'm conflicted. And I am conflicted on the fact of number 5, technology has helped my students become more socially aware, confident, and positive about their future. When discussing AI, I need to note that in the beginning, I was very, very against AI. I didn't love it, and I still don't love it, but I'm growing on it. I believe AI can be very useful, and I believe that AI is a tool that we now must accept and embrace within education. But I feel as though that sometimes AI is being used too early or in ways that is affecting student outcomes in a negative. I believe that AI should be used while students are approaching mastery, while they already have the foundations prior to AI. But using AI when they're trying to build this foundation opens them to non credible sourcing or incorrect information, and it's going to affect with that mastery level. And also, technology has increased my students' engagement in their learning as number 8. And I actually put disagree for this one because of the simple fact of it allows this screen time in schools. And now we can talk about a phone ban. Seneca Valley has a phone ban, and they don't want students on their phones in the day. The phones need to be put away. Now, they aren't collected in pouches or anything. Students are allowed to have them in their bags. But this access to the Chromebook allows for students to get distracted, to Google, just talk with their friend on Microsoft Teams, because a lot of the students did not realize that it's a monitored chat and it easily could be accessed rather. And even though having this access to a laptop, I believe, can be very beneficial, I believe this also opens a lot of room for students not being so engaged, more so hiding behind their computer and not actively listening. Now, there is an application that we did use at Seneca Valley Senior High School, which was Land School, so that I would be able to log in and see what the students were doing on their screens, which is a great access tool, making sure that students aren't using AI to write their paragraph, or making sure that students are on target and on task. And a great feature is you could turn off the Wi-Fi to, stop the students from watching March Madness, which we had to do. But there was something that was discovered during my experience that students found a way to bypass Land School. They found a way to make it non-visible to the teacher. And that created a big issue. And I still don't believe that issue has been resolved. So now talking about my research article to further discuss this topic is from a student of the Department of Counseling and Graduation Education Special Education Program in Fort Wayne, Indiana, by Amanda Guradot, published in 2025. It talks about how technology impacts student achievement in the classroom. And something that's noted on page 47 is, what are the negatives of having technology in the classroom? And this is talking about disparity between pupils, disparity between the pupils and teachers, missing teaching and touching of the book, the actual physical portion of textbooks. Most textbooks are gone at Seneca Valley Senior High School because everything is being operated online. And even some teachers are trying to pull back and move back to paper. And enticing games, chatting with friends, and computer supervision. And this is what I was exactly talking about. And something that is super, super important that I don't think a lot of people realize is this access to only typing papers, only being able to digitally make work is preventing students from knowing what margins are on paper. They don't know proper indenting. They don't know how to do it because the computer does it for you. Now, you can go on Microsoft Word and change that depending on the format, and that's great. But when you have a piece of paper and you have a pen or you have a pencil and you're writing a professional letter of a thank you card even, and it doesn't look professional, that can create some issues, especially for these secondary students who, especially in these higher levels of grades 11 and 12, whenever they go off to college or go immediately into the workforce, if they have to have actual physical deliverables to a client, a sponsor, anything within that realm, and it doesn't have this proper, clean execution, it's going to hurt them negatively. And this is so important because I've heard many students say that they do not need to be able to write on a piece of paper because everything's typed. I don't need to know this. We don't do this. We don't need that. And they're already dismissing it. And they have this preconceived notion of that this is so obsolete. I don't need to do this. And it's a little concerning. And also the reliance on technology. Technology is great, but technology can fail. And when it fails, it's always that time that you really don't want it to. And this article, research article rather, discusses laptop and iPad problems and the infrastructure of these devices. Now, some students can purchase the insurance on their devices and get them fixed. Then they're without this device. So this sole reliance on technology, when technology gets outdated almost every day, technology can break. You forget your charger and it's dead. And now you just have this blank screen. So you have to borrow a charger from somebody, or if magically everybody forgets their chargers, there's no computer. I do not believe that technology is bad. I do not believe that AI is necessarily bad. I just believe that there is still so much that we do not know, and there's going to be a lot of trial and error to be able to make this properly fit within the educational land space. There are so many more topics that I could discuss around my STNA results, as well as through more research articles. But the biggest thing that I want to note of my strengths and my weaknesses is every class is different, every student is different, and we need to keep that in mind. Some students have IEPs where they need to be able to have answers provided to them digitally. I had a student that did have that IEP, and I made sure that that was accessible to that student for everything that could relate to that IEP. I was very sure to be able to support my student in the best way possible. And overall, that's what we need to do as teachers, is find the best ways to support our students. And some methods may work for some classes and others may not. So being able to pivot is so incredibly important.